Sign the papers, Claire. You've already lost the marriage. Don't embarrass yourself by trying to fight for a life you were never important enough to own. Claire Whitmore looked across the polished mahogany conference table at the man she had been married to for 19 years. Then she picked up the pen. Her husband smiled. His mistress smiled too. Neither of them noticed the slim black flash drive resting inside Claire's closed handbag. And neither of them knew that, before the night was over, a copy of everything on it would be sitting in the hands of federal investigators. At 42, Claire Whitmore had learned that silence made arrogant people careless. Her husband, 47-year-old Grant Whitmore, had spent years proving it. Grant was the founder and CEO of Whitmore Meridian Group, a Chicago-based investment and logistics corporation with offices in 6 states and annual revenues approaching $2 billion. Business magazines called him disciplined. Financial reporters called him visionary. His employees called him intimidating when he wasn't around. Grant preferred another word: untouchable. He was 6'2", broad-shouldered, with silver beginning to appear along the sides of his dark hair. His suits were custom-made. His watches cost more than some employees earned in a year. He rarely entered a room without checking who had noticed. Claire had once admired his ambition. She remembered the young Grant who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment near Northwestern, who ate takeout noodles at midnight while building financial models on a borrowed laptop. She had been there before the tailored suits, before the private drivers, before anyone returned his calls simply because his name appeared on their phone. Claire had worked as a forensic accountant before their second child was born. She had left corporate work when their daughter developed severe asthma as a toddler, and Grant's company entered its most demanding growth period. Grant used to thank her for that sacrifice. Eventually, he began treating it like evidence that she had no life without him. By their 15th anniversary, he no longer asked Claire what she thought about business decisions. By their 17th, he stopped pretending his late nights were all business. And by their 19th year, he was openly involved with 35-year-old Vanessa Cole, Whitmore Meridian's vice president of strategic partnerships. Vanessa was polished, confident, and ambitious. She wore sharp, neutral-colored suits, carried herself like every room was an audition for a bigger one, and had no interest in playing the embarrassed mistress, hiding behind restaurant corners. Grant promised her marriage. Then he went home and told Claire he wanted a divorce. There had been no apology. Grant stood beside the fireplace in their Lake Forest home, one hand in his pocket. "I'm not going to drag this out." Claire sat on the cream sofa opposite him. Their son Ethan was already away at college. Their 17-year-old daughter Lily was spending the weekend with Claire's sister. Claire had arranged that intentionally. Grant didn't know that. "I'm listening," she said. "I want the house sold. The vacation properties stay under the company structure. You'll receive a settlement, obviously." "How much?" He almost laughed. "Enough." Claire stared at him. "Enough for what?" "For you to live comfortably." He said it slowly, as though explaining something to an employee who had missed a meeting. Claire folded her hands in her lap. "And Vanessa?" Grant's expression barely changed. "What about her? Are you marrying her?" A pause. Then came the answer that told Claire everything she needed to know. "Yes." She nodded once. Grant had expected crying, maybe screaming, perhaps a threat to expose the affair. Instead, Claire walked upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and began building a timeline. She had already suspected the affair. What she had not yet fully understood was the other betrayal. That discovery had started 6 months earlier. Grant maintained a private study at home that nobody was supposed to enter without permission. The room had dark walnut shelves, a large antique desk, and a locked cabinet where he kept business records he claimed were too sensitive for company offices. Claire rarely went inside. Grant had forgotten that the house belonged to both of them. One afternoon, while searching for the deed to a family property, Claire found a courier envelope inside a desk drawer. The contents were mundane at first glance. Account statements, transfer confirmations, shipping invoices. But Claire's old instincts returned almost immediately. Numbers told stories. And these numbers were contradicting one another. 3 invoices showed payments for industrial equipment shipped through a company called North Atlantic Commercial Holdings. Claire recognized the amount on one transfer, $18.7 million. She also recognized the corresponding corporate acquisition from Whitmore Meridian's public filings. The official number had been $11.2 million. $7.5 million had disappeared between one document and another. Claire sat at Grant's desk for almost 20 minutes without moving. Then she photographed every page and put everything back exactly where she found it. That was the first thread. She pulled carefully. Over 6 months, the thread became a rope. Grant traveled constantly. During those trips, Claire returned to the study. She found encrypted backup drives hidden inside a locked metal case. She found handwritten ledger references in an old leather notebook. She found passwords disguised as golf scores in a calendar Grant had stopped using. Claire never confronted him. That was the part Grant misunderstood most. He thought silence meant ignorance. In reality, Claire spent nights cross-referencing shell companies, public filings, property acquisitions, and international transfers. She discovered entities registered in Delaware, Nevada, the Cayman Islands, and Luxembourg. She found fake consulting contracts, inflated acquisitions, related party payments disguised through intermediaries, and eventually, a spreadsheet Grant should never have kept. It appeared to track more than $500 million in concealed, misdirected, or fraudulently represented transactions over 8 years. Claire sat alone in the kitchen at 2:14 one morning, staring at the total, $503,840,000. Her hands went cold. The affair suddenly felt small. Grant had not merely destroyed their marriage. He had built part of their life around money that could place him in federal prison. Claire contacted one person, her former colleague, Rebecca Sloan, now a partner at a forensic accounting firm in Chicago. Rebecca was 50, practical, sharp-eyed, and almost impossible to impress. When Claire showed her the records in a private conference room, Rebecca stopped taking notes after 15 minutes. Claire looked at her. Rebecca removed her glasses. Do you understand what this could be? Yes. No. I mean really understand. Claire's voice remained quiet. I think Grant has been manipulating transactions through shell companies. Rebecca leaned back. This isn't a few improper transfers. If these documents are authentic, this could involve securities fraud, wire fraud, tax violations, false corporate disclosures, possibly money laundering depending on where some of these funds went. Claire stared through the glass wall. Outside, office workers moved through downtown Chicago without knowing that her life had just split into a before and after. Rebecca studied her. Does Grant know you have this? No. Keep it that way. That advice changed everything. If you enjoy stories where patience becomes power, subscribe and stay with this one, because Grant Whitmore was about to make the mistake that destroyed him. He became crueler once divorce negotiations started. Grant hired Theodore Marsh, an aggressive family law attorney known for representing wealthy executives. Claire hired Evelyn Brooks, a composed 54-year-old attorney with 30 years of experience and very little tolerance for intimidation. Grant's opening settlement was brutal. He claimed several major assets were corporate property. He challenged Claire's entitlement to investment accounts. He tried to limit support by arguing that she had voluntarily abandoned her career. He even suggested their primary residence had been purchased substantially through separate business-derived funds. Evelyn slid the proposal across her desk. He expects you to fight every paragraph. Claire read it. Would fighting delay the divorce? Significantly. And if I accepted? Evelyn looked at her carefully. Claire, you understand this settlement is deeply unfavorable. I do. You could challenge it. I know. Evelyn lowered her voice. Then why are you considering signing? Claire opened her handbag and placed a small folder on the desk. Evelyn read the first page. Then the second. By page 4, her expression changed completely. Where did you get this? From records Grant kept at home. Evelyn closed the folder. Has anyone else reviewed these? a forensic accountant, and she believes federal crimes may have occurred. Evelyn remained silent for several seconds. Then she finally understood. Claire did not need Grant's empire. She needed distance from it. How much do you believe is involved? More than 500 million. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Then we're not negotiating over assets anymore. No. Claire looked down at the settlement. We're negotiating over how quickly I can legally separate myself from him. 3 weeks later, the final signing took place in a private conference room at Grant's law firm. Grant arrived with Vanessa. That alone was designed as humiliation. Vanessa wore an ivory dress beneath a camel-colored coat. A large diamond bracelet glittered on her wrist. Claire arrived alone except for Evelyn. She wore a navy pantsuit, minimal jewelry, and the same wedding ring she had worn for 19 years. Grant noticed it. You can take that off now. Claire looked at her hand. Then she removed the ring and placed it beside the divorce papers. Grant smiled. Good. The documents came one after another. Property waiver, investment allocation, support terms, confidentiality agreement. Claire signed. Evelyn watched carefully but said nothing. Grant's confidence grew with every signature. At one point, Vanessa leaned toward him and whispered something that made him laugh. Claire heard only the last few words. Easier than you said. Claire kept signing. When the final page appeared, Grant leaned back. I'll admit, Claire, I expected more resistance. She signed her name. Did you? After 19 years? Yes. She closed the pen. Grant gathered the papers like trophies. You should be grateful I didn't make this uglier. Claire looked at him for a long moment. You did. The smile faded slightly. Then Claire reached beneath the table and picked up her handbag. Grant expected her to leave. Instead, she removed a thick gray envelope. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Claire placed it in front of Grant. What is that? A courtesy copy. Grant opened it. The first page contained a list of 12 companies. North Atlantic Commercial Holdings, Redbridge Advisory Partners, Milton Freight Solutions, Crescent Harbor Capital. Grant's face changed. Not dramatically. Not yet. But Claire saw the movement in his jaw. Where did you get this? Vanessa looked from him to Claire. Grant? He ignored her. He flipped to the next page. Transfer summaries, dates, account numbers, internal authorization codes. The confidence drained from his face one line at a time. You went through my office? Claire said nothing. Grant turned another page. What the hell have you done? Evelyn finally spoke. Mr. Whitmore, I would recommend that you call your corporate attorney. Grant stood. The chair scraped violently against the floor. Claire, his voice dropped. What did you do? She met his eyes. I kept records. You have no idea what you're looking at. I spent 11 years as a forensic accountant. Grant froze. It was almost absurd. For years, he had mocked the career she left behind. Now he remembered it. Vanessa took the papers from him. What are these? Grant snatched them back. Nothing. Claire looked at Vanessa. They're not nothing. Grant slammed the envelope onto the table. You think this changes the settlement? Claire almost smiled. No, I wanted the settlement signed. That frightened him more than any threat could have. He stared at her. Why? Claire stood. Because I wanted our marriage legally separated from your next problem. Grant's phone rang. He ignored it. Then Evelyn's rang. Then Grant's rang again. He looked at the screen. His chief financial officer. Grant answered. What? The voice on the other end spoke so loudly that Vanessa could hear fragments. Federal agents. Grant's face emptied. What office? Another pause. When? He turned toward Claire. She remained completely still. The CFO continued talking. Grant disconnected. Almost immediately, a notification appeared. Emergency board meeting, Whitmore Meridian Group. Then another. Legal hold notice. Then another. External counsel requested. Grant looked as if the room had tilted beneath him. You sent this to them. Claire picked up her coat. I sent verified copies to people whose responsibility is to determine what happens next. What people? Claire looked directly at him. Federal investigators, your board's audit committee, and outside counsel. Vanessa stepped backward. Federal investigators? Grant turned on her. Don't. She stared at him. Is it true? Vanessa, don't start. $500 million. Grant looked at Claire. You destroyed everything. For the first time that day, Claire's expression hardened. No, Grant. I documented what you built. Within 48 hours, Whitmore Meridian's board placed Grant on administrative leave. 3 board members who had publicly praised him issued statements distancing themselves from his decisions. His closest corporate ally resigned. Banks froze certain related accounts pending review. Federal investigators executed search warrants at company offices and Grant's private study. The story reached national financial news by Friday morning. Grant Whitmore, once photographed beneath headlines celebrating American entrepreneurship, was suddenly appearing beneath phrases like federal investigation, accounting irregularities, and alleged offshore transactions. Vanessa disappeared from his side almost immediately. She hired her own attorney and claimed she had no knowledge of improper financial activity. Grant called Claire 17 times in 2 days. She answered once. His voice sounded different, smaller. You planned this. Claire stood beside the kitchen window in the new townhouse she had rented. No. You waited until I signed everything. You wanted the divorce. You could have told me. If I had told you 6 months ago, what would you have done? Grant went silent. They both knew. Files would have disappeared. Accounts would have moved. Records would have been destroyed. Witnesses would have been warned. Claire continued. You mistook my silence for weakness because that was easier than considering I might be thinking. You're enjoying this. No. Her answer came immediately. I spent 19 years with you. Our children love you. There is nothing enjoyable about watching their father face criminal charges. That was the one truth Grant had not prepared for. Claire did not hate him enough to become reckless. She simply respected herself enough to stop protecting him. The investigation lasted 14 months. Prosecutors eventually charged Grant and 2 former executives with multiple federal offenses tied to fraudulent transactions, false reporting, and the concealment of corporate funds. Several allegations were contested. Others were supported by internal records, witness testimony, and banking documentation that had nothing to do with Claire. Her files had opened the door. The company's own records had done the rest. Grant eventually entered a plea agreement on several counts rather than face trial on the entire indictment. He lost his position. Much of his personal fortune became tied up in restitution, litigation, and asset forfeiture proceedings. The empire he believed carried his name forever removed him from its leadership page before sentencing. Claire, meanwhile, refused money connected to disputed transactions. She retained only the assets legally confirmed as clean under the settlement, and later returned to forensic accounting as an independent consultant. At 44, she opened a small financial compliance firm with Rebecca. Their office was nothing like Grant's towering headquarters. It had 6 employees, mismatched coffee mugs, and windows overlooking a quiet street in Evanston. Claire loved it. Her daughter Lily visited after school during her first year at Northwestern. Ethan helped redesign the company website. One evening, Lily sat across from her mother in the empty office. Were you scared? Claire stopped typing. When? When you gave them everything. Claire thought about the question. Yes. Lily looked surprised. You didn't look scared. Claire smiled. Courage isn't looking fearless. Sometimes it's knowing exactly what you're afraid of and preparing anyway. Lily nodded slowly. Then she asked the question Claire had expected for more than a year. Do you hate Dad? Claire looked through the window at the traffic below. No. After everything, I hate what he chose to become. She turned back toward her daughter. But hatred would mean he still gets to decide what kind of person I become. Months later, Claire received a handwritten letter from Grant. He apologized. Not beautifully, not perfectly. There were still excuses between some of the lines, still traces of the man who believed consequences were something other people brought into his life. But one sentence stood out. "I thought your silence meant you had nothing left to say." Claire folded the letter and placed it inside a drawer. She never wrote back. She didn't need the last word. She had already rebuilt the rest of her life. Grant's greatest mistake had never been underestimating Claire's anger. It was underestimating her discipline. He thought power belonged to the person who spoke the loudest, earned the most, and controlled the room. Claire learned something different. Sometimes dignity is not passive. Sometimes dignity is collecting facts while someone insults you. Sometimes it is refusing to react before the truth is ready. And sometimes the most powerful move is allowing an arrogant person to believe he has won until the consequences of his own choices walk through the door. If this story stayed with you, share it and subscribe for more stories about choices, consequences, and emotional justice. And tell us in the comments, if Claire had confronted Grant the moment she discovered the first suspicious transfer, do you think justice would still have happened, or was her silence the reason the truth survived? Because people who build their lives on deception often fear loud enemies, but the person they should fear most is the one who quietly keeps the receipts.